Commission any aspect of voting or counting proceedings or interference with or obstruction of election activities. These objections must be lodged by serving by no later than 5 p.m. on the second day after voting day at the Commission's national office. Now, this session marks the end of the first lap of setting up the 6th local sphere of government, which will go down in history as one that we managed in unique and challenging contexts, both of COVID-19 and a shortened election timetable. We pulled it through along the road that was not easy, and we could not have done it without the staunch support of the provincial government, the police services, all our election stakeholders, and we had to jump through hoops of fire to get to where we are today. So we are very glad that we were able to honor this invitation to come here to this ceremony. To tell us more about how eventful these elections were, I'm going to invite our Provincial Electoral Officer, Mrs. Masinga, to come to the podium to give us the details of the journey that we traveled with all of you, and without whose support we couldn't have made it to this day. Mrs. Masinga, please.
Leaders of political parties present with us today, and the members of political parties that they are leading, the Premier of our province in KwaZulu-Natal, Premier Zigalala, and the members of the Executive Council that are with us today, the leaders of the religious institutions that we have that have been with us since we started when we were launching the Code of Conduct for political party, the members of the civil society that are here with us who were part of the Election Observer Mission, other state entities that we work with, which I will acknowledge as we proceed with our program today, all our other guests that are with us today, good morning. Dr. Hlongwane has already indicated that what we are doing today is what we were expected to do, particularly the 16 political parties that were sitting with us here since last week. We need to go home. So we couldn't waste beyond now because everyone wants to go and sleep. So we could have said, no, let's go rest and do this tomorrow, but we need to close this chapter and start a new one. These are preliminary results as recorded from the outcome of the voting processes in our over 4,900 voting stations that we have in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. And as already indicated, it is important that we emphasize this because we are already receiving questions that in terms of the law, the IEC can only publish the official results after 7 days of voting. That is absolutely correct. We will do that. But I can't imagine how political parties will be feeling if we were to say we wait until then. So we do issue preliminary results after we finish capturing all the results that we have in our possession. And then political parties and any other member of the public can lodge a 65 objection if they believe that something may have happened either in the build-up to these elections or during the elections themselves or during the counting, which may have negatively impacted the credibility of an election in that particular community. Those people can lodge their objections with the Electoral Commission, and the deadline had expired but you can always seek a condonation from the Electoral Commission to still make a submission if you sincerely believe that something untoward may have happened in one of the voting stations that may have jeopardized the credibility of the elections. The presentation is going to be in two parts. There is something very important that I need to deal with before we get to the results, because if I don't deal with it in the beginning, once my colleague that is going to be presenting the results starts, anything that we say after that as the Electoral Commission won't really matter. So we believe that it's important that we deal with the protocols that we need to deal with, and then we can focus on the results, and then we will hand over the results to the Premier of the province, because the Ministry or Department of Local Government is the custodian of local government in the country. So it's important that we hand over those results to government so that they know who has been elected and who needs to take over and when. Maybe before I start, I need to apologize for our partner in CRAM, Provincial Commissioner Mkwanazi, who is on the program, who has been taken up by an emergency that needed his direct intervention, and he is not here with us today. He was supposed to come in first before me. I thought I'll start by reminding everyone of the timetable that we are working with, which has been the binding document on all the activities that we have delivered since the proclamation of the election by the National Minister Koktam on the 20th of September this year. Someone told me this was going to work, and surprise, surprise, it is not. Our election timetable started with the proclamation of the results on the 20th of September, and that was a trigger date for all the activities that we conducted. Ordinarily, to run an election, you need a minimum of 86 days between the days the election is proclaimed until the date you hold an election. We all are aware of everything that took place before the election date was proclaimed, and as a result, we had to work with a timetable that was very truncated, which gave us 42 days in terms of the usual 86. What that meant is that an activity that we ordinarily have a week to deliver, we had to deliver in a day. If you look at the slide that is up now, on the 20th, we proclaimed, the minister proclaimed the election date, and the Electoral Commission had to close the voters' roll at midnight on the 20th of September. On the very same day, we had to avail the voters' roll for inspection in case anyone wanted to object to anyone that was appearing on any segment of the voters' roll. We had to open candidate nomination on the same day. We have to open application for special votes, something that in an ordinary timetable, all those 5 activities, they are a week apart. We held our registration weekend on the 18th and the 19th of September. Normally, we have 2 weeks to clean up the voters' roll before we go into an election. This time around, we had 1 day. We had a registration weekend, 18-19. On the 20th, the voters' roll closed. On the 21st, the very next day, candidate nomination closed. Within 5 days of that, we had to certify the candidates that were going to contest these elections, because the most critical task of them all is the printing of the ballots. And unless you have certified the candidate list and concluded all the candidate nomination processes, we are not able to start the ballot printing. So that's how we started off this election. Once we finished the certification of candidates, we issue them with the certificates that allow them access to all our voting stations. And then within a few days of that, we have to close application for special votes, because we needed to finish the provisioning for the special vote event to make sure that we have sufficient documents to administer special votes. I'll quickly gonna go through KZN in numbers just to give you an indication of the scope of an election in this province probably vis-a-vis other provinces in the country. The voters' roll that we went into this election with, which was the certified voters' roll for this election, had, sorry, this is very sensitive, had 5,447,815 voters in KwaZulu-Natal. That makes up almost 21% of the total voters' roll in the country. We are only second after Gauteng as the most populous province on the voters' roll. After us is the Eastern Cape, but that's basically the scope of the elections in this province. The bottom graph just shows you the split between male and female on the voters' roll, which is always skewed in favor of the females. I do hope political parties, that the representation of political parties as well in our municipalities will be reflective of the higher percentage of women in our voters' roll in this country. In terms of voting stations, this is the scope of the elections in this province vis-a-vis other provinces. We are occupying 21% of the total voting stations that we have in the country. We have over 23,000 and 4,940 in KwaZulu-Natal. In terms of parties that were contesting elections in KwaZulu-Natal, we had 78 political parties, inclusive of parties that were only contesting parts of the province and not necessarily the entire province. Only 5 of the political parties contested every ward, every municipality in this province, and those are the Abantu Batho Congress, African National Congress, Democratic Alliance, Economic Freedom Fighters, and Inkatha Freedom Party. Others you'll find even your Ratepayers Association contesting elections in some of the municipalities, but these are the only 5 that contested the whole of KwaZulu-Natal. Candidate nomination overview, we saw a record number of candidates that were contesting elections in this province. This is a comparative analysis from the 2011 local government elections. We didn't want to go beyond that because the nature of the voters' roll that we use now started taking shape in 2011. If you look at 2011, we had 28 political parties. This time we had 78. Wards themselves, we had 828 wards. This time we were working on 901 wards. Ward candidates, we started off with just over 5,000. We had 14,000 this time around contesting in these elections. PR candidates, just over 4,000 in 2011. We were sitting at just over 7,000 this time around. Independent candidates, I think this is where we saw the biggest jump. We started off with 107 in 2011. We had 334 independents that were contesting KZN this time around. Total number of candidates, if you look at 2011, just over 10,000, 2016, still within the 10,000 range, and it doubled up in this election. This is the comparison of seats versus candidates that were contesting these elections. For ward candidates, we had 901 seats that were up for grabs. We had 14,092 candidates that were contesting, and we have 13,191 candidates that were not so lucky. On the PR side, both in terms of the local municipality as well as district municipalities, we had a total of 994 seats that were up for grabs. We had 7,358 candidates, and we are going to have 6,364 candidates that are not going to be happy. So that's the total of the seats that we have against the candidates that were contesting, and the variance is 19,555. What has been good so far since Monday is that there is a general level of acceptance of the results, particularly at what level. We do have incidents where we have had to relook at the results in some of the wards, but fortunately we have a party liaison committee where there is anything that doesn't make sense in the results, we are able to reconcile those results together until they make sense for all of us. I am not sure whether our presiding officer gets tired at 2 in the morning when they start recording the reconciliation portion of the result slip, where you look at the ballot papers issued, ballot papers that are valid, disputed ballots, cancelled ballots, spoiled ballots. Something happens during that reconciliation. But fortunately, the reconciliation page doesn't necessarily affect the votes received by a political party. If anything like that happens, we have a mechanism of reconciling results with political parties. Ballot papers. We had a total of 955 unique ballot papers that we needed to print. This is in comparison with national and provincial elections, where we simply have 2 unique ballots in the province, the national and the provincial ballots. This time we had 955 total ballots, which accounts for the metro, the 43 local municipalities, as well as the 10 district councils that we have in the province. Our provisioning strategy is that we provide 100% to the number of people that are on the certified segment of the voters' roll for that municipality, ward, or voting districts. But for the voting district consignment, we further round it off to the nearest 100. So we plan for 100% turnout, but we know we hardly ever get 100% turnout. The bottom breakdown just indicates the number of ballots that were printed vis-a-vis the number of people certified on the voters' roll for that particular election. On the ward by-elections, we had the voters' roll, as already indicated, of 5.4 million in the province, but we printed 5,785,000 ballots, 5,785,000 ballots, which made provision for a 6% buffer over and above the 100% provisioning. On the PR ballots for local municipalities, we still have the same numbers of people on the certified voters roll, but we printed again 5.7 million to make way for the buffer. The PR district ballot, the voters roll there is reduced because we have one region in Metro that doesn't belong to any district council. So the certified voters roll for the PR ballots in the province was 3.5 million, and we printed 3.8 million, and we had a buffer of 8%. On the Metro ballots, Metro only has 2 ballots because they don't have a third one, which is for the district council. We had 1.9 million, 1,908,000 on the voters roll for the Metro alone, and we printed 1,965,000, which made provision for a 3% buffer. The reason I'm putting this slide is that we want to dispel the notion that we ran out of ballot papers. What could have happened is the logistical plan was not tight enough in eThekwini because we only had experienced that in the outer west region of eThekwini, in Ward 1 and Ward 4. What could have happened there is that when they were splitting their ballot books to create consignments per ward and per voting station, something didn't go well with the numbers. But fortunately, the ward ballot was not affected. It's the PR ballot that was affected, and we were able to move them from the neighboring wards in the outer west region of Pinetown. But we managed to deal with that situation pretty quickly when we became aware of it. This is the pass that I thought I needed to do now, because if I don't do it now, once we do that after the results, no one will be interested. I need to acknowledge the role that is played by the various state departments in this province in particular. In terms of the Constitution, all state entities have got to support the Electoral Commission in the delivery of elections, particularly in terms of the infrastructure required to deliver the elections. I would like to acknowledge the Provincial Local Government Steering Committee which comprises of the IEC, COCTA, SSA, as well as SALCA. This is a structure that has been operational since 2 years ago, and is a structure that where we look at COCTA was identified as a lead agency in government in this province to consider all the infrastructure that we need to run elections and coordinate ensuring that all the other government departments make sure that the facilities that belong to them are ready for us to use during elections. So whilst you see COCTA, but COCTA here is a lead agency on behalf of all the government departments in this province. They liaise with the Department of Transport in terms of roads. If the Department of Transport says we do not have sufficient budget, they will go to COCTA, and COCTA will have to try and source funds within government that could be redirected into making sure that the roads are rehabilitated in time for the elections. That's specifically the access roads. One of the task teams of this structure is the voting station infrastructure task team, where the members are a little bit wider. It still involves IEC, COCTA, and municipalities at district level, but it also involved the specific government departments that have something to do with the infrastructure in voting stations. That's the Department of Transport, Department of Education, Department of Health, ESCOM, SALCA, and ICASA. ICASA is representing the network cell phone providers. They are able to work with them and ascertain that they are able to piggyback on each other's infrastructure to try and improve connectivity in our voting stations. We also have the outreach and communication task team, which is used to design outreach material that is used by the various state entities to assist the IEC to educate on the election framework and just doing voter education. One of the biggest programs that was run by this team was driven by the Speaker of the Provincial Legislature, where we did roadshows in different towns in the province, educating people, particularly in preparation for the registration weekend, and educating who needs to change their registration details in going into these elections, because there are people who still believe that in 2019, national and provincial elections, people could pretty much show up anywhere provided they were on the certified segment of the voters' roll. We had to educate that for local government elections, you need to register in the ward where you ordinarily reside. And that's one of the biggest programs that we ran. In terms of election logistics, we worked pretty much mainly with municipalities and government departments. That is in terms of storage facilities that we needed to secure in each one of the 44 municipalities in the province, and as well as the distribution of the election material into voting stations from the municipal level storage facility. The SAPS played their part in securing the elections, but over and above that, they needed to escort our area managers that were carrying our sensitive materials into the voting stations. We also had in this province for the past year been participating in the Provincial Joint Operations in the province that brings together all the security structures, where we were looking at the issues of stability in the province and the categorization of voting stations in terms of their risk profile. We were working very closely with the SAPS for the whole year building up into the election day, where they were able to deploy the members in line with the risk profile of the area where they were going to be working. I have already mentioned the Party Liaison Committee. This is the structure that's unique to South Africa, where we have, whether we have elections or no elections, we have a structure representative of all the political parties that would have attained seat in that sphere of government, whether it's national, provincial, or local, to discuss issues around elections that start as far back as when we draw the voting district boundaries, when we break down the wards into voting districts, so that we are able to have an administrative unit that we work with when we plan our operations. So the Party Liaison Committee is not only activated for elections. We may meet more frequent around elections, but we meet all the time, whether we are recruiting staff to vet the staff that are presiding officers in our stations. We do not employ them until the Party Liaison Committee in every municipality has confirmed that the presiding officer or deputy that is going to man our voting station does not hold office in a political party and have not held office in the past 5 years, because in front of the public, the perception is that that person is still an official of the party. We make room for a 5-year window period before we can bring them on board, and we do not confirm them until the political parties in that municipality have accepted them. We also screen our staff, the presiding officers and their deputies, for records of serious offenses, and that's where the SSA comes in terms of that, because we cannot have somebody with questionable integrity in the community presiding over an election in any community. The other vetting that we do for our staff, we run our candidate nomination system against the electoral staff system, so that we don't have someone who has decided to be a candidate in this election still working as an electoral officer at any level of the commission. Lastly, on outreach and voter education, I want to, I've missed the Provincial Multi-Party Political Intervention Committee. Whilst the PLC focuses on issues around operations, the Multi-Party Political Intervention Committee looks at issues of a political nature that may impact negatively on the integrity of the election in any community. It's the same political parties that sit in the Party Liaison Committee, but this is the committee that where we think there's something that has been reported against a political party, the other political party has an opportunity to engage that political party and advise them on an intervention that will help develop an environment that is conducive to holding free and fair elections in that community. MEC Peggy Nkonyeni co-chairs that multi-party political intervention committee in her portfolio as the MEC for community safety and liaison in this province. We've been co-chairing that committee together for the past year. Lastly, outreach and voter education. We worked, I've already indicated, our biggest program, which was a roadshow in all the different towns, headed by the Speaker of the Legislature, with our outreach staff in the Commission, where they provided the resources that we needed to run the roadshow. Municipalities, we did ward-based voter education programs with the municipalities' special programs, whether it's a youth desk or the disability desk, and then the civil society organizations, which includes the NGOs, faith-based organizations, unions, and traditional authorities, where we did voter education. But we have a very organized civil society in this province, and organizations such as the KwaZulu-Natal Christian Council, the Corner Council of Churches, and other associated agencies, where they've clustered themselves into various groups that do voter education, they do election observation, and they do election-related violence monitoring. These are all the different entities in the province that play a role in running these elections. Before I hand over to a colleague from my office who is going to talk to the results, which is something that everyone is interested in, I would like to use this opportunity to request the staff of the Electoral Commission to stand, so that you can understand or know the faces of the people that run elections in this province. It's not me, rest assured. It's the staff of the Electoral Commission. They are very shy, but can the provincial office staff stand? Thank you very much, colleagues. You can sleep today. Everyone is allowed to go to sleep. We are ready to release the results, but unfortunately tomorrow is a working day because we still need to deal with the Section 65 objections that are coming through, but today just sleep. We will start tomorrow morning and deal with the objections so that we are ready as the Commission to release the official results through the Government Gazette on the 8th of November. Colleagues and friends, thank you very much. I forgot to introduce Mr. Godfrey Naidu, who is going to crunch the figures for you. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Sanbonan. All protocol observed, and I do with respect acknowledge dignitaries and our PEO within this environment and the media. Good afternoon, colleagues and political party representatives that have been with us all these days. I just want to present 3 reports, but we must issue a rider. The votes tallied in this report is not indicative of the entire province. We had some issues coming into this meeting, and we will issue out before the end of the day a final set of results, because there were some anomalies along the way, and as usual, our technology also lets us down. For example, Okashlamba result wasn't available to be incorporated. The entire result wasn't available to incorporate it, and as such, the Utukela district, based where Okashlamba is not available. The Utukela Utungulu district results is not included in this because it was blocked for some reason, but our national office team is working on that. And as Mrs. Masinga pointed out, that these are provisional results. The final results will be gazetted on Monday in the Government Gazette. I want to take you through reports. Firstly, the voter turnout report, which is indicative of voter turnout per municipality as per the audited results. So majority of our VDs were audited, but there's some anomalies. And you see eThekwini sitting at 42.4%, and it's between municipalities range between 40% and 60%, with eThekwini being one of the lowest, and Jozini, KZN 272, if you can scroll into 272, being at just over 60.9%. So that's the percentage variance between eThekwini and the highest. We do know that eThekwini had just over 1.9 million voters, and over 800,000 voters registered there, at least voted within eThekwini. So when political parties present here was asking for voter turnout during our presentations at the PPLC meetings, we said wait for this final result to get the exact percentage polls. So this is what's indicative of what the audited results were. And you would know that there's a column after registered voters which reflects the MEC 7 voter turnout. Now this was because these names could not reach the certified voters roll in time due to the time crunch that we had in the revised truncated timetable. But we will hand this out once we've done with all municipalities and it's certified and ready for certification. You'll get a more up-to-date report. I'd like to go on to the next report, the leading party report. This is indicative of the number of seats won per party in the province, and the number of valid votes as a percentage support to these parties. The African National Congress has won 784 seats in the various municipalities in this province, followed by the Inkatha Freedom Party with 522, Democratic Alliance with 174, the EFF with 159, NFP with 50, Abantu Batu Congress with 25, Action SA 13, AIC 11, Independents, which are not parties, the independent candidates 11, Team Sugar South Africa 9, ACDP 8, Independent Alliance 7, ATM 5, Freyers Front Plus 5, Al Jamaa 4, and the rest threes, twos, and ones, it goes down, and it tallies to 1,847 seats. Now, this is obviously a summary of what appears within every municipal council formula and the 40% of the district council seats which was elected for using the third green ballot paper within local councils. So with the exclusion of Metro, obviously Metro only had 2 ballot papers, and all other of the 43 municipalities had 3 ballot papers, which included the district council. So this is the leading party report that is indicative of the number of seats won and the percentage support and the valid vote support of all parties within KZN. Then the final report is very interesting, and which will start parties started to negotiate with each other, I think. It's the hung councils. From the available reports, current available reports, we have 18 hung councils in KZN. I don't think it's been that many ever, and as the years are going on, we're seeing it. And this is indicative of the number of parties. You'll see that within a council, several seats were won by parties with, you'll get a few parties winning the majority of seats, but not the 50% plus 1 seats. It results in eThekwini, which has 221 seats. There's no clear majority there. Umdoni, Umuzi Wabantu, Umsunduzi, Nkosi Langebelela, Alfred Duma, Mvoti, Newcastle, Danhauser, Edumbe, Abakulusi, Nongoma, Umshaya Lingana, Matuba Tuba, Umshlatuze, Mtonjaneni, Kwadakuza, and Mapumulu. These are the 18 hung councils. So I see the Premier is holding his head. It's a headache for all parties. It's a headache for all parties, and I think our colleagues from COCTA who sit with us, and Ms. Masinga says support us throughout the process, and Saga, I think it's their headache coming up as well, and how to manage these councils and the way forward. Obviously, I'm not going to present any other reports. I'm sure you're interested in looking at eThekwini in particular, and some like Umsunduzi and Newcastle, all the bigger municipalities, and obviously the other municipalities, to see these results as they were. You know, the PLC members know that when I've been presenting at the party liaison committee meetings via the Zoom meetings, you would have noticed that we await all municipalities to turn from red to green. Red means that there's something outstanding, and when they all turn green, that's when the results are finalized. However, we must add as well, the Commission has received objections, and that is why we say this is preliminary results. We've got to deal with those objections in due course, and within today and by tomorrow, and the Commission will decide on those objections, which may or may not change results. So we will make available as a package to all at some stage, either later today or tomorrow, on the full 43 local council seat allocation, the Metro seat allocation, and the 40% seat allocation to the district. So we will avail that shortly, and especially to the 16 parties that sit on our PLC, and obviously to COCTA and the other government officials that would need that report. I thank you, and I'll take leave of you and take my seat, but do appreciate that we've still got some work to do, and we will definitely make these reports available to all, as we have done in the previous elections. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Naidu, and thank you PO for that very detailed presentation. Before we get to the next item, I would like to extend Mrs. Masinga's profuse gratitude for MEC Spear for providing this venue for us for the past 5 days that we know that the Premier uses for his meetings, but he was able to give way for us to come and occupy and sort of colonize this venue. So we thank MEC Spear for that. We also thank Mr. Stelo Duma, no HOD, Mr. Tando Dubane, under the tutelage of MEC Shomuga, for their unwavering support at all times when we are stretched beyond limits, for them for coming through and for also providing this very huge and beautiful marquee and absorbing all the associated costs so that they can relieve us of the financial burdens that we are going through as the Electoral Commission. So siyabonga kakhulu Premier, siyabonga kakhulu gabantu abakwi cabinet yakho abasizayo. You may be small in frame, but we really feel the breadth of your shoulders to carry us through these times. So siyabonga ukuthi you've been able to continue with this tradition of supporting us. So siyabonga kakhulu. Now I'm just going to ask the co-chairperson of the Multi-Party Political Intervention Committee to come to the podium. Another one of our staunch supporters at any given time, whatever portfolio she is in, she always comes through for us. So thank you so much, MEC Konyen.
Thank you very much, Program Director, Dr. Shlongwane, our Honorable Premier, Premier Sihle Zigalala, leaders of all political parties who are here gracing this occasion, our Provincial Electoral Officer, Mrs. Masinga, and your team, members of the media. Let me also acknowledge the presence of the leaders of faith-based organizations, leaders of observer missions, the members of the civil society, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start off by indicating that actually I'm standing in for the MEC for Kokta, MEC Shomuga, who could not be here at this moment. Let me start off by thanking all the people of KwaZulu-Natal who managed to participate in these local government elections, thereby exercising their democratic right to vote and expressing their will. Let me also express our sincerest gratitude for the cooperation and support from all political parties and, of course, independents for making these elections possible. We also wish to express our humble gratitude to the IEC officials led by Mrs. Masinga for conducting the free and fair local government elections, although they are still going to be declared. But we strongly believe that, of course, issues that might still arise are going to be amicably resolved. We also wish to thank the multi-party political intervention committee that was also led by both the MEC for Community Safety and Liaison and the Commissioner for the IEC, Mrs. Masinga. We thank all of you for participating in that particular committee as various political parties. We also wish to acknowledge the job well done by the security forces for ensuring that citizens were free to participate in these elections when they were expressing and exercising, expressing their will to participate and also participating actively in exercising their democratic rights. We wish to thank the provincial government, which is led by Honorable Sehlezi Galala. We thank all MECs, all HODs, and all officials who participated and also availed themselves in ensuring that we are conducting free these local government elections without any glitches. And also for providing infrastructure such as halls, schools, and water infrastructure, electricity, and other amenities, social amenities that were needed for this purpose. So we are very, very grateful to all of you for participating in these local government elections. Therefore, may I humbly invite our Honorable Premier to the podium so that he may therefore receive the results of these local government elections. Thank you very much, Honorable Premier.
Ladies and gentlemen, these are the results broken down by municipality, which exceeds allocation calculation for each one of the municipalities in this province. When we finish here, we will display another report that Mr. Godfrey Naidu is preparing, which shows the majority parties where we have a municipality, where we had a party that won by a majority. This then constitutes the results of all the municipalities in the province, and we will be giving a copy to each leader of the 16 political parties that are here with us. Thank you very much, Premier.
Thank you. Thanks. The Program Director, Dr. Ntombifuthi Masinga, the IEC Provincial Electoral Officer, Ms. Masinga, who has done a sterling job for us as the province. MEC for Transport, Community Safety and Liaison, MEC Nkonyeni, leaders of all political parties that are here today, leaders of all faith-based organizations, officials from the IEC, elections observers, leaders of the faith-based organizations that also participated in monitoring the elections, members of the media, the people of KwaZulu-Natal, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Sanbonani, we extend our greetings to all of you gathered here today. We stand here with a deep sense of gratitude and humility to receive on behalf of our government and indeed the people of KwaZulu-Natal the final electoral outcome of the 2021 local government elections as decided by the citizens of our country and our province. After a grueling and intense campaign the communities of our beautiful province have articulated in no uncertain terms how they wish their wards and their municipalities to be governed. We wish to thank the IEC for its agility to fulfill its obligations following a directive from the Constitutional Court and for having performed an almost impossible task given the shortened turnaround time required. The IEC has not only delivered a credible elections, but it has done this with a high level of efficiency and elegancy, even though there were a few glitches on the way. And I believe we should give the IEC a big round hand of applause for the work well done. We thank you, Ms. Masinga, but we also thank your officials and the entire team for their dedication, and we know that at some point they had to sacrifice, work extra hours, and not sleep for us to have this day on behalf of the province. We also take this opportunity to extend our heartfelt thanks and appreciation to all political parties that were part of this crucial election exercise. These include independent candidates who contested on their own. The contestations, dialogue, and campaigning were all vibrant everywhere. Worryingly, there were, however, isolated incidents that marred these elections, such as the shooting of innocent women in Inanda, the brutal killing of candidate councillors, act of intolerance, and the assault on some senior leaders, including the Secretary General of the National Freedom Party, the NFP. These should never be allowed in our democracy. We also are concerned about those who prevented people from exercising their right to vote, and the subsequent killing of an innocent lady in Umkambatini in what seems to be a direct attack to those who voted. We demand that the law must take its course and those responsible should be held accountable soon and be prosecuted. We are, however, pleased to note that political parties generally conducted their campaigns peacefully and in accordance with the Electoral Code of Conduct. This conduct is a clear insurance and commitment that we are committed to taking our democracy to new heights. We also wish to thank our security agencies who remained on full alert and responded swiftly and worked very hard to ensure that an environment of peace prevailed before and during the voting process. The security agencies, especially the South African Police Service, the South African National Defence Force, and intelligence services, spend long hours and sacrifice sleep in order to ensure that voting takes place peacefully and the constitutional right of our citizens to vote is not infringed. We say thank you for the sterling work you have done, and we hope this will continue and become the work ethics in an example that should be emulated going forward. To the South African media and all journalists in our province, we wish to pay a special tribute to you for going an extra mile in informing the voters about the various campaigns, dissecting and analyzing manifestos, and in ensuring that the elections were held in a transparent manner. And I think the role of the media of ensuring and promoting transparency should be uploaded. As we accept these results today, as the government, we will play our part in facilitating a smooth transition and re-establishment of all the municipal councils. Now that elections are decided, it is time to respond to the needs of the communities. Voting is the beginning of the long and arduous journey to grow KwaZulu-Natal and South Africa. The real electoral victory will gain meaning when we address the commitments and expectations of all communities, even those who didn't vote for us. This is the time to translate all the manifestos into workable plans of action and tangible delivery to our communities. I also wish to thank our colleagues, my colleagues in the Executive Council, the members of the legislature and the Speaker of the legislature, and all who work tirelessly to lend their support to the IEC. We should not forget that the legislature also participated in promoting voter education through various sessions that were held. We thank the local and international observer missions whose work has contributed to the consolidation of our democracy, and through their role, they have shined spotlight on the resilience of our democracy as South Africa and as the province. Finally, now that elections is over, let us put our contestation behind and extend a hand of comradeship to one another with a full understanding that the future of our province demands that we work together. Together, let's grow KwaZulu-Natal. I thank you.
Siyabonga, sibonge KZN. You've said a mouthful. Siyabonga kakhulu, angisafuni ukuyimosha ngoku-editorialize some more. I've just been informed that there was one report that was omitted from the presentation that Mr. Naidu was giving. This is a display of the municipalities where there are clear winners, outright majority. So I'm just going to give him this opportunity to give that presentation, after which Bishop Foster is going to close off the session, pray for our food and the safety of the province going forward. And I thank you all for making time to be here and for working with us through the hardest times that have been outlined. So, ngiyabonga kakhulu. After Bishop Foster, lunch will be served. Siyabonga.
Good afternoon once again. I'm here to present the 50% plus one. Now, early on, we presented the 18 hung municipalities. These are the 50% plus one municipalities. It means that these parties have a majority within these municipal councils. Firstly, starting with the district councils. District Council 21, it's the ANC, that's Ugu. Umgungun Globo, DC 22 is ANC. DC 26, Zululand, is IFP. Harry Gwala, DC 43, is ANC. Now, Umdoni is ANC. KZN 213 Umzumbe is ANC. Rayan Konieni 216 is ANC. Umshwati 221 is ANC. Umgeni KZN 222 is Democratic Alliance. Moi Umpofana is ANC. Mpendle is ANC. Umsunduzi is ANC. The earlier report, there was some updates happening. Mkamatini is ANC. Richmond is ANC. Ngutu is IFP. Msinga is IFP. Upongola is IFP. Ulundi is IFP. Jozini is IFP. Big Five Shlabisa is IFP. Umfolozi is IFP. Umlalazi is IFP. Nkandla is IFP. Mendeni is ANC. Kwadakuza is ANC. Ndwedwe is ANC. Greater Coxted is ANC. Bushlebezwe is ANC. Umzumkulu is ANC. And Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, KZN 436 is ANC. So that's a presentation. I did indicate early on there were results outstanding, and this is still reflective of some results that are outstanding, and as I said, we'll make it available as a package. I thank you.
You can always judge by the length of the prayer how hungry people are. So I'll try and keep this very short. Firstly, just to congratulate everybody on behalf of the faith community for a job well done with the IEC. There are still huge challenges, and I'm just reminded of the words of Jesus that says, "Let the greatest among you be the servant of all." And I think that if we have that attitude, we're going to have great leaders. So let us pray. Gracious God, we give you thanks for these elections. We have been reminded by the Premier that all did not go well, and that there is still conflict, discord, and disputes between us. But, oh God, we can turn that around and become one of the greatest and most peaceful provinces. But it is up to us.